AITA for reporting my stepmother to the school district after she forged documents to use my address for her grandkids? r/entitled people. 28M. Never thought I'd be posting on Reddit, but here I am at 2 a.m., unable to sleep because my phone hasn't stopped blowing up for 3 days straight. I need to get this out somewhere, and honestly, I need to know if I'm the villain my family is making me out to be. Some background. I'm a landscaper. I own a small but successful business that I built from the ground up after dropping out of community college. It's not glamorous work, but I make decent money, I'm my own boss, and I genuinely love what I do. I've got a crew of 5 guys now, and we handle everything from basic lawn maintenance to full landscape design and installation. My mom passed away when I was 12. Cancer. It was brutal and slow, and it fundamentally changed who I am as a person. My dad remarried when I was 15 to Sandra, 51F now, who already had a son, Derek, 33M, from her previous marriage. I'm not going to say Sandra was evil, she wasn't. But she made it abundantly clear from day one that Derek was her priority, and I was just there. An inconvenience she had to tolerate to be with my dad. My dad tried to bridge the gap, but he was also grieving, and Sandra had this way of making everything about her and Derek. When I turned 18, I moved out and never looked back. I keep minimal contact with that side of the family. Holidays, the occasional text, that's about it. The important player in this story is my Uncle Richard, my mom's brother. Uncle Rich never married, never had kids, and after my mom died, he kind of stepped in as my anchor. He's the one who taught me about plants, about working with my hands, about taking pride in honest labor. He helped me start my business, co-signed on my first truck, and was genuinely the only adult who made me feel like I mattered during those difficult teenage years. Uncle Rich passed away 14 months ago. Lung cancer, ironic, since he never smoked a day in his life. It gutted me. I was with him at the end, and his final words to me were about how proud he was of the man I'd become. He left me everything. His savings, not a fortune, but substantial, his truck, his tools, and most importantly, his house. The house is modest, a 3-bedroom ranch built in the 1970s, but it sits in Creekview Heights, one of the most desirable neighborhoods in our metropolitan area.
Why?
The schools. Creekview Elementary, Creekview Middle, and Lincoln High School consistently rank in the top 5 in the state. People pay premium prices to live in this district. The house is probably worth close to $600,000 despite needing updates, purely because of the address. I moved in after Uncle Rich passed, fixed it up slowly using my own skills, and have been living there ever since. It's quiet, the neighbors are nice, and I feel connected to my uncle every time I walk through the door. Now, to the actual problem. 3 months ago, I got a call on my cell phone from Creekview Elementary School. A woman identified herself as the school nurse and said that Emma, 10F, had fallen on the playground and might have a sprained ankle. They needed a parent or guardian to pick her up. I was confused. I told her she had the wrong number. I don't have any children. She apologized, said there must have been a mix-up, and hung up. I thought nothing of it. 2 weeks later, another call. This time from the main office. They were calling about Tyler, 8M, who had been written up for a behavioral issue, and they needed to schedule a conference with his parents. Again, I explained I didn't have children and didn't know anyone by that name. The woman on the phone paused. "Sir, this is the emergency contact number listed for Tyler and Emma Hartwell. Their enrollment documents list this address, my exact address, as their residence." My blood ran cold. Hartwell is Derek's last name. Emma and Tyler are his kids with his wife Jessica. I asked her to repeat the address. She did. It was definitely my house. I told her I lived alone, had never heard of these children at my address, and that there had to be some kind of mistake. She thanked me, sounded flustered, and said she'd look into it. That night, I did some digging. I texted Derek for the first time in probably 8 months and asked, casually, how the kids were doing. He responded enthusiastically, shocking, since we're not close, and mentioned that they were thriving at their new school and that the move had been the best decision. Move? What move? Derek and Jessica live in Riverside Glen, a town about 40 minutes away. Their schools are fine. Average. Nothing special. I didn't push further. Instead, I sat with this uncomfortable suspicion festering in my gut. Then, 3 weeks later, it all exploded. Update 1. The drop-off incident. I work early. Really early. During peak season, I'm usually leaving the house by 5:30 a.m. and don't get home until 7 p.m. or later. So when I pulled into my driveway at 4:30 p.m. one random Tuesday, I'd finished a job early and sent my crew home. I did not expect to see 2 children sitting on my front porch. Emma and Tyler. They were just sitting there. backpacks on, looking at their tablets. Like this was completely normal. I sat in my truck for a solid minute, trying to process what I was seeing. Then I got out and approached them carefully. "Hey there," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "Are you guys okay? Are you lost?" Emma looked up at me with this expression of pure confusion. "Who are you?" "I live here," I said. "This is my house." "No," Tyler said matter-of-factly. "This is Grandma's house. She said to wait here until Mom picks us up." "Grandma. Sandra." My hands were shaking. "Does your grandma live here?" "No," Emma said, rolling her eyes like I was stupid. "But she said this is the address for school stuff. Mom drops us off here sometimes when she can't pick us up right away because it's closer." "Closer to what?" "The school." Their actual home was 40 minutes away. But my house, Uncle Rich's house, was less than 2 miles from Creekview Elementary. I called Sandra. She didn't answer. I called Derek. Same thing. I called Jessica, whose number I had to dig out of an old family group chat. She answered on the 3rd ring. "What do you want?" Her tone was immediately defensive. "Your children are sitting on my porch," I said flatly. "Come get them. Now." There was a long pause. "I'm 20 minutes away. Can you just watch them until—" "No," I said, cutting her off. "You have 15 minutes, or I'm calling the police to report abandoned children." She started yelling, something about family, about how I was being dramatic, but I hung up. Jessica showed up in 18 minutes, face red with anger. She didn't say a word to me, just grabbed the kids and their stuff and peeled out of my driveway. 20 minutes after that, my phone started blowing up. Sandra called me 7 times. Derek sent a wall of texts. My dad even called, which he never does. I let them all go to voicemail. I needed to think. Update 2. The forged documents. The next morning, I called Creekview Elementary and asked to speak with the principal. I explained that I was the homeowner at the address listed for Emma and Tyler Hartwell, that I had not authorized anyone to use my address for school enrollment, and that I had never seen or signed any documentation giving permission for this. The principal, Dr. Weaver, was professional but clearly uncomfortable. She said she understood my concerns and asked if I could come in for a meeting. I agreed. That afternoon, I sat in her office while she showed me the enrollment file. My jaw dropped. The documents included a lease agreement. A forged lease agreement with my name listed as the landlord and Derek and Jessica Hartwell listed as tenants. It claimed they rented 2 bedrooms in my home for $800 per month and had been residing at the address for the past 8 months. My signature was at the bottom. Except it wasn't my signature. It was close. Someone had clearly studied my handwriting, but it wasn't mine. There was also a utility bill in my name, real, but I didn't provide it, a copy of Derek's driver's license, and a letter from me confirming that the Hartwell family resided at my address. I sat there, stunned, as the full scope of what they'd done washed over me. "Mr. Peterson," Dr. Weaver said carefully, "I want to be clear about what this means. If what you're telling me is true, this constitutes enrollment fraud. It's a serious matter that we're legally obligated to investigate and report." "It's true," I said. "I live alone. I've never rented a room to anyone. I've never signed any lease agreement. My stepmother and stepbrother forged these documents to get those kids into this district illegally." She nodded, her expression grim. "I'm going to need you to provide documentation proving your sole residency, mortgage statements, tax records, anything like that. And I'd recommend you consider filing a police report." I told her I would provide everything she needed. When I got home, I went through every drawer, every file, every piece of paper I could find. Nothing was missing, but I realized how they'd done it. Sandra had been to my house exactly once, about 4 months after Uncle Rich died, under the pretense of checking in on me. I'd stepped outside to take a work call and left her alone in my kitchen for maybe 10 minutes. 10 minutes. That's all she needed to snap photos of my utility bills, study my signature on some documents, and plan this entire scheme. I called a lawyer the next day. Update 3. The official report and CPS. My lawyer, Marcus Chen, was a referral from a client whose property I'd landscaped last summer. He specialized in real estate law but had experience with fraud cases. He was also, as it turned out, exactly the kind of methodical, no-nonsense advocate I needed. Marcus advised me to document everything: screenshots of texts, records of calls, written summaries of every interaction with timestamps. He helped me draft a formal complaint to the school district and accompanied me when I filed a police report for forgery and identity theft. The officer who took my report was sympathetic but honest. "Cases like this are hard to prosecute," she said. Family involvement complicates things. But having this on record protects you legally if this escalates. It escalated. 2 weeks after I filed the complaint, I received a call from the school district's central office. They had completed their investigation and determined that Emma and Tyler Hartwell had been fraudulently enrolled using falsified documents. The children were being immediately disenrolled and referred back to their home district. The same day, I got a call from Child Protective Services. A caseworker named Denise explained that when the school reported the fraud, it triggered a standard welfare check. She wasn't investigating me, she was investigating Derek and Jessica. Enrollment fraud often indicates broader issues, Denise said. Unstable housing, financial problems, attempts to hide a child's actual living situation from authorities. We need to ensure those children are safe and properly cared for. I told her everything I knew, which wasn't much about their actual home life. But I did mention the drop-off incident, how the kids had been left on my porch, alone, waiting for a pickup that might not have come for hours if I hadn't arrived home early. Denise thanked me and said they'd be in touch if they needed anything else. That evening, Sandra finally reached me. I answered because I knew this conversation needed to happen. "You've ruined everything," she said, her voice trembling with rage. "Those children were thriving. They were getting the education they deserved. And you destroyed it because you're petty and bitter and have never forgiven me for not being your mother." I let her rant for a full minute. When she finally paused to breathe, I responded calmly. "Sandra, you forged my signature. You committed fraud using my identity and my home. You broke the law. Whatever consequences are coming, and they are coming, are a direct result of your choices. Not mine. Family doesn't report family to the police," she screamed. "Family doesn't forge documents and commit identity theft against family," I replied. "You didn't treat me like family when you did this. You treated me like a resource to exploit. I'm done being exploited." I hung up and blocked her number. Update 4. The family explosion. The fallout was nuclear. Within a week of the disenrollment, Derek's marriage started showing cracks. According to my dad, who reluctantly called to inform me, clearly torn between sides, Jessica blamed Derek and Sandra entirely for the scheme. She claimed she'd been told that I had agreed to let them use the address, that the paperwork was legitimate, and that she had no idea it was forged. Whether that's true, I don't know. But it created a rift between Derek and Jessica that apparently turned their home into a war zone. Sandra, meanwhile, was in full damage control mode. She called my dad daily, crying about how I'd destroyed the family, and how she couldn't show her face at church anymore. Apparently, word had spread through their social circle about the fraud investigation, and Sandra was facing social consequences she hadn't anticipated. My dad called me, trying to mediate. "Son, I know what they did was wrong," he said, sounding exhausted. "But Sandra's a mess. Derek's marriage is falling apart. Those kids are back in their old schools, miserable. Is this really what you wanted?" I took a long breath before responding. "Dad, what I wanted was to live in the house Uncle Rich left me without my identity being stolen. What I wanted was to not have my signature forged on legal documents. What I wanted was to not find children abandoned on my property. I didn't create this situation. I responded to it. But did you have to go to the authorities? Couldn't this have been handled privately?" "No," I said firmly. "It couldn't. Because when I tried to address it privately, when I called them about the kids on my porch, they responded with anger and entitlement, not apologies. They weren't going to stop. They weren't going to come clean. They were going to keep using my address, my identity, my home, until they got caught by someone else or the kids graduated. Private confrontation was never going to work with people who fundamentally believe they did nothing wrong." My dad was quiet for a long moment. "I don't know how to fix this." "You can't," I told him. "This isn't fixable. And frankly, Dad, I'm not interested in fixing a relationship with people who see me as a tool to be used rather than a person to be respected." He didn't have an answer for that. 2 weeks later, Derek showed up at my house unannounced. I was working in the front yard, installing a new flower bed, trying to find peace in physical labor, when his car pulled up. He got out, and his face was haggard. He'd lost weight, and there were dark circles under his eyes. "Can we talk?" he asked. I set down my trowel and stood up. "Talk. I need you to understand that this wasn't—" He stopped, ran a hand through his hair. "My mom said you'd agreed. She said she'd talk to you, and you were fine with it. I didn't know the documents were forged until the school called." "And you believed her?" I asked. "You believed that I, the stepbrother you've spoken to maybe twice a year for the past decade, agreed to let you claim residency in my home, sign a fake lease, and commit school enrollment fraud? That didn't strike you as suspicious?" He looked at the ground. I wanted it to be true. Emma was struggling at her old school. She's smart, really smart, but the classes were too easy and she was acting out. The counselor suggested she needed more challenge. And Creekview is an excellent school, I finished. I know. Uncle Rich used to talk about how lucky the neighborhood kids were to have access to that education. That's part of why he never sold the house, even when he could have made a fortune. Derek met my eyes. I just wanted what was best for my kids. Then you should have moved into the district. Or applied for the inter-district transfer program. Or a charter school. Or hired a tutor. There were a dozen legal options, Derek. You chose the one that involved forging my signature and committing fraud. My mom is not the person who signed those documents with my name, I interrupted. You are. Whether you knew they were fake or not, you benefited from fraud committed against me. You dropped your children off at my house without my permission. You treated my home, my uncle's home, as your personal resource without ever once thinking to ask if it was okay. He was silent. I think you should leave, I said finally. And I don't think we should speak again. If the police or CPS contact me with further questions, I'm going to be completely honest with them, because that's the kind of person I am. Unlike some people in this family. Derek left without another word. Update 5. Resolution and Aftermath. It's been 2 months since Derek's visit. The situation has more or less settled into a new normal, though the aftershocks continue. The school district completed their investigation and forwarded their findings to the district attorney's office. Marcus tells me that prosecution is unlikely. These cases rarely go to trial, especially with first-time offenders and family complications, but the report will remain on file. If Sandra, Derek, or Jessica attempt any similar fraud in the future, it will be much harder for them to claim ignorance. CPS closed their case after determining that Emma and Tyler were not in immediate danger. However, the investigation did reveal some concerning information about Derek and Jessica's financial situation. They're behind on their mortgage, have significant credit card debt, and have been juggling bills for months. The perfect life they projected was largely a facade, and the school fraud was apparently part of a larger pattern of trying to maintain appearances they couldn't afford. Jessica filed for divorce 3 weeks ago. According to my dad, who still calls occasionally, though our conversations are brief and strained, the fraud investigation was the final straw in a marriage that had been troubled for years. She's moving back to her parents' home in another state and taking the kids with her. Derek is devastated. Sandra has not attempted to contact me again. I've heard through the grapevine that she's been telling anyone who will listen that I'm a vindictive, ungrateful person who turned my back on family. I don't particularly care. The people whose opinions matter to me, my crew, my clients, my actual friends, know the truth. My dad and I had one final conversation about a month ago. He asked if there was any path to reconciliation. Dad, I said, I love you. You're my father, and nothing will change that. But you've spent the last 13 years trying to balance your loyalty between me and a woman who has consistently treated me as an afterthought at best and a tool to be exploited at worst. I'm not asking you to choose sides, but I am asking you to understand that I will never have a relationship with Sandra or Derek. What they did, the forgery, the fraud, the entitlement, revealed who they really are. And those aren't people I want in my life. He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, I wish things had been different. Me too, Dad. Me too. We still talk occasionally. Birthday calls, the odd text. It's not much, but it's honest, which is more than I can say for most of my interactions with that side of the family over the past decade. As for me, I'm doing okay. Business is good. Better than good, actually. I landed a major contract with a new housing development that will keep my crew busy for the next 2 years. I've continued fixing up Uncle Rich's house, and every improvement feels like a tribute to his memory. I've also started volunteering with a local youth mentorship program, working with teenagers from difficult backgrounds who are interested in trades. It feels right, passing on what Uncle Rich gave me, being for someone else what he was for me. The other day, I was working in the backyard, planting a Japanese maple that Uncle Rich had always wanted but never got around to buying. The sunset was painting the sky in oranges and purples, and for the first time in months, I felt genuinely at peace. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This isn't over. You destroyed my family. I'll never forgive you. Sandra. She must have gotten a new phone. I blocked the number, set down my phone, and went back to planting. Some people will never understand that their consequences aren't your responsibility. They'll blame everyone but themselves, convinced that they're the victim in a story they authored through their own choices. I used to let that kind of thing get to me. I'd question myself, wonder if I'd been too harsh, Worry about bridges burned and relationships lost. Not anymore. I did the right thing. I protected myself, my home, and my uncle's legacy. The fallout that followed wasn't revenge, it was gravity. I didn't push anyone off a cliff, they jumped and are now angry at the ground. And honestly, I sleep better than I have in years. Final thoughts. For anyone in a similar situation, family members exploiting your resources, your identity, your goodwill, I want to say this: you are not obligated to tolerate it just because you share blood or a family tree. Family is supposed to mean support, respect, and love. If what you're getting is exploitation, manipulation, and entitlement, that's not family. That's just people who know your vulnerabilities and have decided to use them against you. Document everything. Consult professionals, lawyers, authorities, whoever you need. Protect yourself first. And don't let anyone convince you that standing up for yourself makes you the villain. You're not responsible for the consequences of other people's choices. They are. Edit. Wow, this blew up more than I expected. Thank you for all the awards and supportive comments. To answer some common questions. Asterisk yes, the forged signature is technically identity theft. Marcus confirmed this. Asterisk no, I don't feel guilty. I spent the first few weeks after all this happened questioning myself, but therapy has helped me understand that my response was appropriate and proportional. Asterisk yes, I'm NC, no contact, with Sandra and Derek permanently. That's not changing. Asterisk for those asking about the kids, I genuinely hope Emma and Tyler are okay. They're innocent in all this. If their parents had asked me properly, explained the situation, and worked with me openly, I might have been willing to help figure something out. But that's not what happened. What happened was forgery, fraud, and entitlement. And kids or no kids, I wasn't going to be a doormat for that. Thanks for reading. Stay strong out there.